Oh, Rick. Man.
Are we on?
You know, this week we don't even get the applause. As a matter of fact, this week we didn't even get a picture. Welcome to the edition of Keene Knows Spin. I'm Randy Filiault.
And I'm Dave Richards.
And thanks for bringing the picture on, Rick. We appreciate that. Anyhow, another week. A lot of things going on.
Actually, things are picking up. Things are picking up.
More things to talk about, more news items. So let's get right to it. I put a couple of opening things on here that happened in the past week before we get on to all the other stuff.
Yep.
Kudos to members I know of the local police department, the fire department, a bunch of guys that I worked with. They actually went to Mount Snow to the Tough Mudder, New England Tough Mudder competition. Basically, it's a 10-mile course up and down the mountain with all kinds of obstacles, and it's basically, I think it was made by British Special Forces or something, the original run. But to those of you guys that did that, man, I'm telling you. I mean, like I told Dave last week, I went to sleep and woke up with a hurt ankle. My Achilles was sore from sleeping. And, you know, I got my buddies out there running 10 miles up and down the mountain. So good job to all those guys and women that did that. A lot of women did it, too. A lot of women in good shape out there.
Oh, a friend of mine did that.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yeah. And
it's crazy, man.
He had some pictures, you know, and he says, well, you go up, you know, he showed some of muck, and he said, when you go over some of these obstacles, when you come out the other side, then you're in a puddle of mud, and you come out and you got leaves in your mouth, and then he said it's a real test.
This is one of the obstacles, and I saw it online. If you look online somewhere and go to New England Tough Mudder, they'll show a lot of the photos and videos of it. And there's one where it's almost like a huge above-ground swimming pool that they build.
Yep.
And it's basically dumped with like a tractor load of ice cubes in it and water. Okay. And you've got to go into it, and you've got to submerge yourself underwater and go under a part that's built into it, and then come back up through the ice cubes. And I guess that's in the beginning of it. It's like, okay, I'm done.
Wow. Wow.
So, like, add a boy and add a girl to all you guys that completed that.
Well, that'll wake you right up.
Oh, I guess it would. So anyhow, good job to them. Also, congratulations to not only Keene State grads, but all the college graduates in the area. A lot of local colleges. So, you know, now that you're graduated, it's time to be quiet now. You're going to have to learn that. And now you're going to have to get a job. So welcome back to your parents' basements. It's not going to be the same as it was the last 4 years, but, you know, congratulations anyhow. It's, 4 years down and a long ways to go. And one comment I wanted to make, I've got a couple things to say about the Sentinel that aren't good, but they did a nice job on the article on Saturday about Dan Mitchell.
Okay, yep.
Dan's been on the show before in the past, and of course, Dan is the character of the area as far as media goes. So, nice job embarrassing Dan a little bit.
So do you mean character or do you mean character?
It's whichever way you want to use it.
All right.
But he is a character. Let's see. Also, kind of a little thumbs up to the popular motorcycle swap meet at the fairgrounds.
Yep.
I mean, boy, you talk about bringing people into the area, and I know a lot of you went through downtown that day, and a lot of people down there spending money.
We like that.
That's what it's all about.
That's what we like that.
Leave your money here. Not so quite kudos to how they handle the traffic situation, because it was backed up from the fairgrounds to Lower Main Street intersection in Keene. So hopefully next year they can work that out a little bit, because I was caught in that traffic. One thing I want to talk about before we, before we get on to that thing, I do want to point out a neighbor of mine, his name's Fred Martin, stopped off by my condo the other day. Make sure I have this right set up. And just to show you these, he did one of each of these for police department and fire department. And the eagle you see there is actually a Spofford Lake eagle. And he just made them up just in appreciation of the Keene Police and Keene Fire Departments. Although I do know from having been on the council that there is a legal process that has to be go through to accept any type of gift. It's just the way it is, Somebody drops off a bag of $1 million, you want to know where it came from.
You got to vote. You got to vote on it.
So even on a donated picture, it has to be voted on. So thank you to Fred, and I'll be handing these over to Dave tonight, and
we'll put a letter together, and it has to go through the process, and we'll make sure that it does.
All donations have to be handled, properly and legally, but gorgeous pictures. Did
very well done.
Absolute job in them. So they will be going before the council, and it will be getting proper recognition. So thank you, Fred. Nice to know that people out there, pay attention and do appreciate emergency services.
Well, the thing, and maybe I should bring that in more often, I haven't, is when you look at donations to the city, And we get them all the time. We get so many of them that actually the chair of finance is trying to set it up so they just do them once a month.
Coming all together?
Yeah, so they get reported all at the same time.
But we'll bring them on here and individualize them.
We'll bring the, all you got to do is get the FOP agenda, and you can see who's donating and what they're donating to. Right. So we can bring that in once a month.
And a lot of them are, $15, $25 just as a thank you to like an ambulance crew or maybe somebody found their pet or, a cop. Helped out a disabled motorist or whatever. So
I mean, it's common. It's just common. All the time we get these donations.
So thanks to Fred and thanks to all that donate, and we will give recognition here. One other thing also, probably this week we're going to be going on YouTube here. So for those of you that don't have Cheshire TV, and we can't believe you wouldn't have Cheshire TV. Mm-hmm. Come on. But for those one or two that don't. You can tell them that they'll be able to pick us up on YouTube.
Yep. So now, do you have the dates for when we?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
We'll be looking for those answers next week.
It'll be by this week. We'll be on YouTube. This show will be on YouTube this week.
All right.
We just started to get set up today, and so that way, if you miss our show on Thursday, which you should never do, but if you do, you can watch it again on YouTube. Or if you liked it so much, you can watch it
again and again.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to get to a letter that, one of the guys who used to sit here, and now he has his own show, and now he's on the school board. Chris Coates wrote, and where did that letter go? I had it here somewhere. There it is, right in front of me, of course. Thanks, Dave. I don't know if you read this. There was a letter to the Sentinel from Chris Coates, who's the chairman of the Keene Board of Education, and it had to do with the Sentinel actually reported on a meeting that was behind closed doors, non-public session is what they're called. In this particular case, they just happened to leave the door open a little bit, and the reporter sat outside the open door, heard it, and wrote down what happened, and then printed it in the Sentinel. And obviously, this had to go through the editors. This is probably the most unethical thing I've ever seen the Sentinel do. Maybe by law, by definition, it wasn't illegal, but it was unethical. And I'll tell you, you sit on the council. I've been there. For those people that sit on elected boards, you have to have a trust between your elected officials and the media. Yeah. You really do. It's a give and take, and this was a take. And I think the Sentinel even went on in their editor's note said, well, they overheard it and we printed it. It's like, wait a second, you know better. And we know you know better.
It's really,
and the Sentinel should actually, in my opinion, the Sentinel should relook at this. And not only apologize to Chris Coates and the whole board, but apologize to the whole city.
They should apologize to the whole community. What you need to know, and like you mentioned, we do this on council. This is a regular event. For instance, I'll give you a pretty straight up. For instance, we need to buy a piece of land to fix a road, and we're going to widen the road. Well, we'll go into executive and we'll talk about what do you think that's worth. What can we get? It's negotiations. It's like when you buy a house. Somebody's selling their house for $100,000. All right, I'm going to offer them $80 and see what they'll do. But I'm willing to go 95, say. Well, if you let that out in the public, you're hurting every taxpayer in the community because now the other side knows what your top dollar is, and they're going to hold out till they get it. It's, these things are everyday occurrence, and you elect the school board, you elect the council to take in the information and make the smartest decisions they can. Mm-hmm. And by the way, you can find out what their thinking process was after the fact anyways. Mm-hmm. Once the deal's made.
It comes out in public.
It comes out anyways. So it isn't something that's, perpetually kept secret. Freedom of information says you can have that. Right. So this is really, you've damaged the whole community to get a story about the negotiating tactics of one of the elected boards. This is just as wrong as it can be.
It absolutely is. And what are you going to get from, what are you probably going to get from the board members now when the media asks them something? No comment.
Yeah,
they're going to say no comment.
Yeah, you're going to burn down the trust of of the elected boards to talk to you.
Absolutely. So I know if I was still on the city council and I had read this, my trust is gone. It's like, especially with that individual reporter. It's like, you know what? Talk to somebody else.
Yeah.
So kudos to Chris Coates for writing the letter and having the board back him up. I think the Sentinel should actually come out with a written apology. I honestly do. Not expecting it, But that's, this is something that's left for tabloids. This is what tabloids do. This is tabloid journalism. And shouldn't have happened. Anyhow, onward to other things. Let's roll over to you, Dave.
Okay.
Since I babble so much, let's let Dave get into something. He get a sore throat over here.
Well, I have just some city council stuff that's
roll away.
Actually, by the time you see this, some of it'll be through committees, some will be going through committees. I just want to point out some of the things that are going on.
Okay.
Wednesday night, so I'll just say Wednesday night, and then I don't have to worry. The annual request for the musical, the 12th annual request for the musical festival on September 1st will come through. Anticipate that'll go right through, no problem. It's an annual request. The Swamp Bats will be asking for 2 dates for fireworks, July 3rd, Tuesday, July 3rd, and Saturday, June 9th. So I have no doubt they'll go through, so mark your calendars if you want to see the fireworks shows. At MSFI, we talked about this a little bit last week. There was a proposal to form a 501(c) charitable organization to look into actually creating hydroelectric power.
For all intents and purposes, like tax exempt.
Tax exempt.
Basically
well,
tax exempt.
Charitable.
Tax exempt and charitable. Right.
Charitable. So, to make a hydroelectric plant at the Ashwheelet Dam,
right.
Which, I don't know how far they'll get, but these people, the people who put this in, want to do this, and they're looking to try to raise some money to see if they can do it.
Cool.
I don't believe they're asking for city dollars, so if we have to okay their charitable status to start raising money, and that will go to that'll go through MSFI this week. I'm sorry, that went through last week, so they got their approval. And now they can start raising money, see if they can do something good with that dam.
Interesting.
If they do, terrific. If they don't, leave it alone. I'm good either way.
We've had that conversation.
I'm good either way. This week they came through that Laura Thibodeau is retiring from the city assessor's office.
And Laura, I've learned to really appreciate over the years the city staff.
Yeah.
Your early years of council, you're always... Young councilors are always a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
But after you're there for a while, you really realize just how hardworking and ethical and honorable the Keene City staff is.
Yeah.
It's funny because you read even in New Hampshire, you read about other communities, their staff, get involved in some situations that are a little, and this just doesn't happen here. And Laura was just great. I'll still call her and ask her something about a property. And she picks up.
Yeah, and she just, she's such a class act, and she's so professional. I don't bring every retirement in, but I really felt that I had to bring that one in. She's been with the city, I think, for 30 years. Years ago, my father worked with her. Nothing but good things to say. Every time I've had a question, not only does she have the time, the knowledge, she just, can tell you anything about why, how the assessing department works. Never too busy for anybody, and we're really going to miss her. It's funny, Chair Greenwald, when he was making the motion to accept the resolution, said, if we don't accept this, does that mean she has to stay?
Yeah.
So, that's how well she's thought of. So, just have a great retirement, Laura. Thank you for your years of service.
Absolutely.
You won't be forgotten in the minds of thousands of people.
Nope, and thank you for letting me bug you all these years, because I probably made more calls than anybody over the years when I was on the council and off. And if I find out your phone number, I'll still call you and bother you. So what the heck?
Right.
Don't feel forgotten. I'll just still call and bug her. And but you're right. You could call her about any neighborhood and any street, and even without looking down at a paper, she had the basic knowledge right there about why a neighborhood is, taxed where it was, or why rates are going up or going down. And that's hard to replace.
And the complexity of how that works, because and I want everybody to remember, that's not the city, that's the state that sets all those mandates, for a lack of a better word, that the city assessor has to go through. And her knowledge is.
What does they say about something that rolls downhill? Well, it rolls downhill and hits her office door.
Yeah.
So.
And then she handles it professionally and brilliantly, really. So
good job.
Thank you much for enjoy your retirement.
Absolutely.
Go someplace nice for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, when you watch the show, it'll be last night. The request for the Pumpkin Fest is coming through. In reading the letter,
actually, see, Rick and I talked about this before the show, because as we're taping this, we actually air on Thursday. And guess what?
Right.
The committee airs right after us.
Oh,
so
okay.
basically, after this show, what he's talking about, you'll see.
You'll see it. So
Okay.
forget about all the days of the week stuff.
There you go. Rick's coming out to correct us.
MSFI first.
Yeah, we know it.
Right.
Okay, let's correct this. MSFI, first is us, then stay tuned for MSFI,
Right.
and then
PLD.
after that, the PLD meeting will be after us. So,
Okay, we'll get a schedule and just like hold it here.
Yeah.
So the annual Pumpkin Fest request is coming through. The initial letter kind of states out budgetary and improved processes that, you know, from what we've learned from past years. I don't think that, I don't believe the council votes for approval of this. I think
Informational.
I think it's to begin.
this point.
Yeah, to begin the process with the staff and everything. As you may know, the Pumpkin Fest takes, well, what is this, May? You know, I mean, it takes from May
It's
to
year round, basically.
yeah, it's year round to get ready and, you know, get re-ready the next year from what you've learned. So,
Try to fix your mistakes.
so that'll be coming to planning. Like I said, I think this is just step one
Right.
to, I guess, probably to have us okay working with staff to get going on it. But again, not approval yet.
Right.
Not that I suspect there'll be a problem with approval. I just, I don't want, you know, sometimes the paper gets things wrong, and I don't want them to say we're going to approve the Pumpkin Fest. I don't think that's what we're doing at this point. Next, this one was kind of interesting when it first came up. Cheshire County acceptance for public purposes, city and water sewer system improvement. And what this is you know, they built the county jail. And actually, we did not vote to allow them to be part of the city water system when they have their own meter and they pay for whatever comes and goes right where they are. But it's a convoluted kind of thing. I think there was a little bit of anger about them building there, and council kind of tweaked them a little, to put it nicely, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
So now they're looking for that. Only this time it involves the potential development of that property, which is zoned, I believe, industrial.
Okay.
But or parts of it are industrial, parts of it. I'll know more after tonight. So watch me in the PLD meeting tonight, and we'll probably get a better breakdown. Oh wait, I'm sorry, that might go to MSFI. So watch the MSFI meeting, and they'll break.
Watch all the meetings after the
That's
show,
right.
and you'll get caught
That's
right up
right.
to date.
And they'll break down exactly the details of it. But I assume we probably will accept it. We do. It's actually.
This drives Rick nuts.
Does it?
Yeah, he's always telling me now,
Yeah,
this
'cause
is how your show
no,
goes.
no,
This
this
is when the committees are.
Yeah, but it
we
wasn't-
sit here and I always forget.
But I'm not sure it was always that way. So I mean, I'm going to offer that.
Yeah, we'll
as,
just blame Rick. We'll just say it's his fault.
It is. You know, if he keeps moving things around,
He does.
and then
He does.
you know,
No,
I don't know.
jeez.
So
They think Lee's in charge of Cheshire TV. We know who the
we
boss
know,
is
we know
back
the
there.
we know the truth.
We know who's in charge.
So you know that'll go through. I assume we'll pick it up. It really is just. It's just wording. You know, in the end, it doesn't really matter. The water's going to come through, and the sewer's going to come through the plant, just like everybody else does. So.
Yeah, the prisoners will be able to drink the water and flush the toilets.
Yeah. So I mean, but they have to pay the bill. So
There
you
you
know, at least they don't get off that hook.
Yeah, pay for your water.
You know, they do have to pay for the water and sewer, which, you know, it actually could help. You know,
Yep.
you have a big vendor using a lot, it could bring the price down, but,
Yep.
you know, we'll see. Near and dear to me, the North Central Neighborhood Association has completed a poll and decided to name I don't know what you'd call it, we're going to call it the North Street Park between Carroll, it's Carroll, is it Howard? I can't remember, Elm and Carroll. North, I know it's North and it's Carroll, I think it's Howard on the other side. That it's really been, you know, the North Central swamp forever.
They actually tried to build
And-
a ballpark there years back.
I tried when I first got on council, and
It was in a swamp. Didn't work.
I didn't get anywhere with it. But we're going to name it the North Street Park. Well, that's going to go through committee. I don't anticipate a problem because that's what the neighborhood wanted. Certainly, they'll have my vote and Councilor Clark's vote. With that said,
That's about the earth-shattering news of the night. We're doing pretty good.
right. Well, there were a lot of names thrown out, and you know, once you name a park, you know, it stays that way for a long time. So, you know, it is serious to get it right. I like North Street Park because there's no, you know, gray area. If you could call it, you know, Dandelion Park, but you wouldn't know where it was. You know, you call it North Street Park, and you know, okay, drive down North Street, you're going to see it.
Okay.
But that'll go through, I would think. I can't imagine
So
somebody's
you're
going
going
to
to jump to your last one and go to that one later.
You want to go to the, okay.
Yeah, go to the last
one. All right. Going through council will be also, next item, is an ice arena update, the ice arena proposal.
It's been on the agenda for a while. It's been kind of quiet for a while.
Yeah, it has been.
That's still proposed for 350 Marlborough Street,
yes,
right?
And that's that's a big deal. It's a real big deal to do something like that.
Absolutely, it is.
So what we got is that there's MEDC feasibility study will be completed during the summer months.
Okay.
And it's really just an update for the city council that's coming through, so they'll accept it as informational. But the study's going to be worked on. We're going to see, what we can do, what costs are, what you can do to offset those costs. I'm sure that's all part of it, plus, parking and any other issues that you're going to have. Mm-hmm. They did do a survey. Had 500. They sent out 3,000 surveys to 3,000 households in the city. They got 499 responses. Of them, 55% listed. They strongly wanted the ice arena there. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty strong mandate. They didn't say who was waffling or anything. It just says in the letter 55% strong support. So that kind of gives us our marching orders that it'll
be a benefit for Keene when that's finally done.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm very concerned with the details because these times are tough and it's a lot of money to spend. Can it pay for itself is my question. I think it can because you charge a nominal. Like when I was a kid, you went to Robin Hood Park and you had, I think it was 50 cents and you went swimming.
Yep.
You do something like that, $2
like
or
softball
something.
teams now at Wheelock Park. You have to pay your softball fees.
Yeah.
Same type of thing. You'd pay your ice fees for your ice time.
And then if you put concessions in, where you have hot dogs and hamburgers or whatever, tacos, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Enclosed market, that probably can bring in enough revenue to offset some of the costs. And I'm sure they're looking at everything, but that was just an update to tell us it's on its way. And, at least the planning part of it's on its way. So, if Jack Dugan's touching it, it's probably going to happen.
Yep.
Because, that guy is Midas. I mean, he does have the Midas touch.
He'll make if it needs to be worked, he'll make it work.
He will. He's something else.
Well, and he's one of those people that's willing to put the hours and hours and hours and hours of time into it.
Oh, no doubt.
Because it is painful when you get involved in projects like that, how time-consuming it is.
Time-consuming, the complicated deals that they work. I mean, but, and I'm going to say it every time I say Jack Dugan and MEDC, look at the railroad property.
Yep, Blackbrook Corporate Park, look at everything.
I bet everything. But I mentioned the railroad property because we were promised, if I want to say, and I've said this before on the show, $30 million in development, taxable development. And it's looking like $60 million is going to be the low end of what we actually get out of this development.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's a big offset to the taxpayers of the city. Big improvement downtown. Jack Dugan, Midas touch. That's all I'm going to say.
Yep. Next step, ice arena. And get out of it. The fairgrounds ones held up a lot longer than we thought it would. I mean, let's face it was made to be a horse pulling barn.
Yeah.
And it's lived. It's way beyond life expectancy.
It has, and these things they just don't go forever. I mean, they unless you fix them up and upgrade them, which we know probably really hasn't happened down there. So, that's my city update. We're going to hold this.
You know what,
we'll hold this one for you.
Well, actually, I had my city council things right here in front of me also, but you kind of hit on the ones that I was going to talk about anyhow. So. I guess with that said, why don't you go to your other city council item, then we'll move on to other things.
All righty. The 100-night shelter. This is kind of interesting. As you know, we've talked about this on the show, and they were looking for $35,000. They missed the window to be a budget item for this year, which in all candor doesn't mean anything, all right? I mean, it means something because we put a budget together every year, and they set deadlines. But if you have 8 city councilors, those deadlines can be thrown out. I just want to say that as we go through this so you understand how the process works. But a committee was set up to analyze whether the need was there, whether we should give them the money. They kind of came back, and this will be on finance this week, they kind of came back with a kind of a mixed bag of an answer. They said at this time the committee recommends communities' need would be served by collaboration of 100 Nights and Southwest Community Services, which is really what we've been saying all along, is that if they're willing to meet the criteria established, then let's talk about the need and see where we go. So they're saying that there is a need But they're not saying in this letter, and we'll have to find out Thursday whether the criteria is met. Right now, I don't see it. I don't see where it says the rules that are in place for the other shelters that we help fund have been met. So my guess is they're not. And I guess I'll read it in the letter here. Using available information over the past year for an average cost as well as bed night data provided by 100 Nights, application would suggest an amount not to exceed the range of $8,500 to $11,000 for City Council consideration. And I'm not really sure. So they're saying that the usage would warrant that if it were part of the existing structure.
Yeah, there's a lot of ifs, though.
Yeah,
if it met criteria, there's a lot of ifs there.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I'm leaning towards no. I mean, we're talking about the winter months. So even if they didn't meet the budgetary deadlines, that doesn't mean that we can't, move forward with this and kind of look at it and act on it by, October, November, December, certainly. So why we're kind of doing this, I'm not sure. If the criteria established for the other shelters aren't met, I'm a little bit antsy about saying yes. I'm actually way antsy about saying yes. So, I mean, we'll have to see how finance reviews this and then get the detailed questions out of this report. But if they're not going to meet the criteria, I'm just pressed to say I'm willing to spend city dollars because it opens a door, too, for anyone else.
Anybody else. That's why we developed criteria.
That's right.
That's the reason for it.
You set up a standard, and
everybody has to follow it.
And in this case, they've worked very well. I mean, you have to be flexible. If the standards aren't there, or don't work well, you fix them. But by all accounts, they are working well. So why would we want to fund this without putting that criteria in place? I don't like precedent setting or outside the rules things because then, from the past, you'll get 100 requests. Right. From everybody who probably you have probably a lot of people who would be deserving.
You get a lot of sob stories.
Yeah,
a lot of tears.
And they're probably all genuine, but you need to set up, a criteria.
Well, you have to remember, these are tax dollars you're using. These aren't money from a bucket you find somewhere. These are tax dollars.
And $35,000 is a lot. And the other thing, that really we should point out, I almost missed this fact, is the minute we start giving somebody money, it never stops.
Nope.
Okay, so the minute
it might start as a trickle, but that site it always opens up a little bit more.
And the minute you say, okay, we'll give them $9,000, next year they're going to say, I want $9,500. Now, if we agree that it's a community need and all that, I don't know that that's a bad thing because you have to fund these shelters. Well, you have to fund shelters that meet the criteria, but if you're not going to meet that, I just don't see how we can set up the city for perpetually paying for something that doesn't meet the criteria.
So anyhow, stay tuned on this one.
Yeah, this one's ongoing.
Stay tuned. That'll be an ongoing process, and we'll be back on that one next week. Let's see. Moving on to a couple of other things. I talk a little bit about local businesses each week.
Yep.
And one place I hadn't stopped in, I'm going to give them a little plug because I always give a plug for local businesses. Local business. It was Little Zoe's Pizza. And that's in the center of Keene, where basically you buy, they'll make a pizza for you to order. All different types of crust, all different types of toppings. You kind of start with your crust and you work your way through. Yep. And basically they put it together for you, put it in a box, and you take it home and bake it. It was phenomenal. Great job to me. I'm embarrassed to say it was the first time that I had been there. And get it home, throw it in the oven 15 minutes later.
Okay, so are you taking this home with you?
There you go, a little plug for Little Zoe.
No, I'll take that home.
Want a copy of it? Look at that.
I get a customer right there.
I brought a couple of them home. There we go. We picked them up a customer. Let's see. In other news, we had mentioned how a couple of weeks ago we mentioned downtown that the New Hampshire Gas was moving on Central Square. Yep. We said that space won't stay empty long. It's not.
It's a week.
Yeah, the Life is Sweet, and they have a small little candy shop under the Colonial, and another one up in the North End where she does actually cupcakes. Combining the two and going right there on Central Square.
Very nice. So, very nice. Yeah. I've certainly been in there.
It's going to be the calorie consumption of my walks is going to go up now.
Yep.
So that's not. Well, once again, people look for those spots downtown to open up.
They do,
and they don't stay open for long. So congratulations, and looking forward to that. Let's see. Where's my other note here? The Kodo, the Japanese steakhouse, is open.
Yep.
One of my fellow workers went to work there, said it was phenomenal.
Right.
And so if you're out and about and you haven't tried out a new place and you want to try them out, And let's see, what else have I got here? Mentioned last week the Poorhouse bar is going to open up where the old Vendetta was. Dory O'Meara did a phenomenal job cleaning that place up and doing a heck of a business. Stopped in on their opening night, and all is good. So good job there. Let's see, what else have I got? We mentioned the local burger place where Armadillo's was. They're open. Yep. They seem to be doing very well. And that's it for new businesses. That's it, folks, on local business. Okay. Why don't I get a lot of, notice I have all kinds of clippings up here. Most of them are going to go towards police department because we've got a lot of things to say on them. But in the meantime, why don't I plug over to my fire log and we can kind of talk about what the boys on Vernon Street did this week. Anyhow, you know what? I didn't even add up the total. Looks like 40, 50, about 70 calls. Quick adding. They 42 of them for EMS ambulance calls. We had 2 fires. We had a car fire and an outdoor fire. No building fires this past week. 7 service calls, 5 good intent calls, and 5 false alarms. But once again, no malicious alarms, and that's cool. And college is out right now, so the calls are probably going to, because I mean, with college being gone, you get 5,000 students and another 1,000 faculty or whatever there, and other workers. So that's a big chunk of Keene that takes the summer off.
Yeah,
so
it is.
The activity for the fire department definitely and the police department definitely go down. It was interesting. I was up on speaking about fire. It was it yesterday or Monday? I was up on Court Street and I heard the scanner go off. That they said they set a first alarm. TD Bank, smoke in the building.
Really?
And I was thinking to myself, what the heck catches on fire in a bank? But I was right next to it, so I drove and looked, and I got there before the engines did. There's a guy in a ladder just got a pressure hose. He's just hosing it. So the mist is going into the air.
Okay.
So how somebody looked over and saw that was smoke, don't ask me. They might have been driving by and just looked really quick. I mean, nothing wrong with calling in when you see something.
Have their glasses or something.
Yeah, it could have been too.
But and you should point out that you're actually 500 yards from there. And and the fire company is like a mile and a half from there. So you're getting there quicker.
Well, I was actually
wasn't a surprise.
No, I was on Court Street. I was actually driving.
Okay.
I was like 100 yards from it when the alarm went off. So I said, well, that's going to be an interesting one. And there's the poor guy in the ladder just pressure washing. And the next thing you know,
he's got the hook and the ladder.
2 cruisers pull in, 2 ladders pull in, the engine pulled in. And he's just kind of looking back going, what? What'd I do? But, quick response. So, that was kind of humorous in a way because the guy in the ladder, his eyes were like that big when he turned around and saw everybody coming in. And the fire station's coming along rapidly now.
Yep.
For any of you that haven't been by there, and I'm sure before too long it's going to be take a tour time.
Yep. It's I think I said 6 weeks last week, so 5 weeks this week, and
it's close.
Everything's on schedule. So.
I know when I talked to the chief last time, it was like late end of May, everything's pretty much buttoned up, and obviously you still have things that aren't completely done yet. I mean, it'll probably be June before they start moving things over.
Well, and you got to remember too because of the lateness of the road work being put out. That I don't know if I'm sure City Council will have a tour, but I don't know if everything will be buttoned up right on the fire station will be done on time like it was supposed to, but the road around it may not. So, if you're going to go down there, walk down on a Saturday, so you're not in there with the the earth movers and the paving trucks and all that stuff.
Yep, absolutely. So that was it for fire department. Another steady week, and of course, it just rained the last few days, so that'll take care of brush fires for a while.
Right.
Because that get pretty crazy out there for a while, and. Let's see. Let's roll over to talk about police issues here. And if you watched the show last week, I know I mentioned how I had gone out on patrol with the police the week before, and I had rode with an Officer Corbett. And I mentioned young female officer, very professional, very good at what she did. I mean, well, lo and behold, a week later, I read in the paper that Keene police went to a domestic, where a guy had beat his girlfriend up. Tough guy. Anyhow, police responded and were arresting him. And Officer Corbett, He struggled. He broke away from a couple of officers, and he swung and hit her twice in the head.
Really?
Yeah. So.
She all right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure. There was a mention that she probably went to the hospital to get checked out. Just it ticks you off because the cops that I know, as friends, and I didn't know Officer Corbett before, and after I met her, I consider her a friend.
Right.
And when you read that some scumbag out there that took a couple of cheap shots, but nonetheless, he's where he should be.
Well, and once you actually hit a cop, he's going to be where he should be for a while.
Yep. Well, he should be.
The judge doesn't take that too lightly.
No, he'll. And of course, like most of them, he's got a track record about that long.
Yeah.
So
you hit a girl cop.
Hopefully this time he'll take it away. But like she had mentioned to me when I had asked her, I said, being a female officer, do you see, like the thugs, do they back off a little bit because you're female? And she said, not at all.
Well,
not at all. Well, a thug is a thug.
Well, and that's the thing. It's. A regular person will back down when a cop gets there.
No matter if it's male or
female.
female.
Oh, no, I screwed up, But
right.
The bad people, they don't care. I mean, you're wearing the uniform. I'm coming. Okay, now you're next. I'm coming after you. So
exactly.
So enjoy your time in the lockup.
Yep. Have a nice time up there. Enjoy cleaning those toilets.
Yep. 3 hots in a cot.
Yep. Hopefully we'll see you in about 50 or 60 years. Maybe not. And anyhow, so it was a busy couple of weeks. I've got to talk to the chief again. I got to try to schedule myself to get back out there, and it's always interesting. That's why I went out a couple times a month when I was on council, because it really opens your eyes to say, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, Keene's a great city, and it's one of the reasons I'm back here. But I'm telling you, it's especially from like 10 at night to 6 in the morning. The town has definitely changed.
When you're young and you see this stuff going on when you're a teenager or early 20s, don't think just because you've gotten older it doesn't happen anymore, because there's a whole generation, just perpetually coming up there making trouble a little bit.
But I think one of the big difference was, with all of us growing up as kids, and, all of us that grew up probably did things that we'd probably, not tell our parents about or now tell our kids about. But no matter what, there was always respect for the cops. Back then, I mean, you might be goofing around, you might be throwing a snowball where it shouldn't be thrown or whatever. Right. But, a police officer came up and said, stop right there. It was like, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am. There was none of this. And I mentioned, last week, of course you have this, I don't want to call him the name that he's fit to be called, but you have him. And even when I was out with the police, giving that girl at the college just a warning for being too loud. And just that, in the cop's face. Yeah. And you're like, I got to slap you myself, for having the attitude that you can knit like that especially when you know you're wrong.
Well, I guess, times have changed. I mean, if you were back in the 60s and 70s and you did that to a cop, I'm not sure they would have acted the same way as they do now.
Nope. There'd be a little less restraint. And some of these individuals take advantage of that. Right. The in your face. But I mean.
But in the end,
they usually get what they deserve. It might take a little bit longer than it used to, but they'll get what they deserve. And in following that up, when I was reading the article about how this went down, he took off and there was a chase, and obviously there was a scrum and he started punching. Then there's the article in the Sentinel, which I completely disagree with. It says tasers, cruel and unusual punishment. I mean. Now, there might be a situation where you don't use a taser, but it's the same thing else with force. There's times you don't use pepper spray. Most of the times you don't use a gun.
Right.
Sometimes you don't even have to grab anybody. You just speak to them. So there's different levels of law enforcement. But, tasers in a case like this, where this guy takes off and runs, and the only thing the police officer can do now is tackle them. Well, because you're not going to shoot them.
No, did he run? Wait a minute. Did he hit the officer and then run?
Basically, no. He was running, and they chased him and caught up with him and apprehended him, and then he started, throwing fisticuffs.
So a taser would have been quite handy.
Yeah,
right there.
Taser starts running. It's like zap, you're down. And then you handcuff them, and this assault doesn't happen. Right. So obviously, tasers like any defensive weapon that the police use. It has to be monitored. You have to be trained. Nobody questions that. But to say it's cruel and unusual,
cut
it out.
Hey, look, I've wired outlets and missed, all right? And I'm telling you, you get a lot more juice out of an outlet. And you get a lot more amps. And, you know, yeah, it hurts for a minute, you know, I mean, but, you know.
You get over it.
Yeah, you get over it. I mean, you know, as long as you know, you're not tasing some 80-year-old lady or something.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
And typically, where are you using it? You know, 20-something men are the ones who are going to get tased. And, you know, if they can take a couple volts that if stops a cop from getting hurt, I'm okay with that.
Absolutely. In a case like, and I know, once again, I mentioned that I know that the Keene police are looking at tasers. Obviously, you know, the main thing right now is budgetary. It's, you know,
yeah, well, they're not cheap.
Nothing's cheap.
They're not cheap. The training's not cheap.
No, but neither is having an officer injured and taken off the force if that happens.
Right, or, you know, if they're hurt, but they're going to recover, then you're paying medical, you know.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, there's a lot of, you know, you look at just the one incident, but there's a lot of behind-the-scenes costs that go on whenever there's something like this happens, so.
Absolutely. So, you know, I mean, obviously there's a cost situation involved, but I know, you know, I know the police department's looking at it. I know it's going to fall in city council's lap at some point, and, you know, I'm absolutely 100% in favor of these tasers, especially, like I said, instead of chasing a guy and holding him and trying to physically arrest him, you know,
or shooting him.
Zap him, cuff him, and throw him in the backseat of the car. We can hear Rick back there. You know, one thing Rick has really become is very pro law enforcement.
Yeah. And, hard as that is to believe.
I know Rick would have a tough.
But yeah, you know, the other side of that is, you know, in some cases, is it a question between a taser or a 45 caliber, you know, 40 caliber bullet? I mean, you know, you know, they mentioned it wasn't in the Sentinel, I don't think. There was another article about it in there. They were concerned with people with heart problems.
Yeah. Well, if you got a heart problem, you know, don't be getting involved in crime.
Well, you're already getting in a fight and you got a heart problem. I mean, but even with that said, it isn't the 20-somethings. By and large, I'm sure there's one in 100 where it's used in an unusual situation. But
this guy was 23.
Yeah, okay.
God, 23, and he's already got a criminal record like this long. Yeah.
Well,
where do they come from? They just seem to wind up here lately, though. That's one of the problems. So anyhow, you know, Officer Corbett's doing fine from what I heard, but you know, like I said, you start to know these. You know, a lot of people just know cops as cops, but when you start knowing them as just people and your neighbors, you know, it really ticks me off when I hear one of them's been assaulted. With that said, I do have my my weekly police log over here, Dave, and this is where I start to babble and.
Yeah, zing right through it.
Yep. So anyhow, for the past week, and this went through it went through the 26th. Let's see, the 26th of April through the 2nd of May. So that was that particular week. There was a total of 703 total calls, incidents, reports, checks, things like that. Total of 703, a little over 100 a day. And let me give you some of the breakdown. Rick says we have 15 minutes left. It won't take me that long. Maybe it will. So for the week from Thursday the 26th through Wednesday the 2nd, some of the things that the police responded to in no particular order. Alarms, 12. Assist the fire department or assist at an ambulance, 10. That's sometimes people get on an ambulance and they're just not your friendly little neighbors, so they don't want to be going. Let's see, they had 6 assaults, and out of those 6, 3 were arrested at the scene. Criminal threatening. We had 5 criminal threats last week. 1 was at the Keene Middle School, and 1 was at the Keene High School. So, you know, all ages.
Yeah, you can't blame the college for everything.
Exactly. You know, these kids are smart enough, they're not going to make it to college. 4 harassments, 9 criminal mischiefs, 4 criminal trespass with 3 arrests on that. Violating a protective order, like a restraining order, 3, and yes, they were all arrested. Disturbances, and these can go anywhere from, you know, a loud, rowdy party to a fight to whatever. There was a total of 25 disturbances in the week that are listed as disturbances. 6 were on city streets. 4 were at bars or restaurants. 4 were at the hospital emergency room. 6 were at city residences. 2 were at the college. Let's see, and 2 were involving the drug task force, and you saw that on Marlborough Street where they arrested a married couple for selling drugs. Another couple off the street. And I did want to comment on that particular one. The drug task force was involved in that. Remember the drug task force?
Yep.
And you know, it shows that sometimes they just go smoothly and most people didn't even hear about it. But when they go badly, we all hear about it. So they did have that. Noise complaints. I guess that's just a little bit before disturbance. Just a little too loud. There was 13 within the city, city residences and different neighborhoods, 6 at the college, and 2 at restaurants and bars. Let's take a look down through here now. Suspicious persons. Dave, you're suspicious. Rick, they're suspicious right there.
If he's going back through my backyard at night, I'm
we're going to report a suspicious person right there. 25. Calls to the shelters, 5. Theft and shoplifting, 15. Drug arrests or calls to drug problems was 11. 7 of them this past week were right at Keene State dorms. So getting towards the end of college,
it's a little too much fun at the end of college.
And most of them there was a lot of arrests. That's not one thing you want to be graduating with the last week of college and have that on your record.
No,
that's kind of bad timing there, kids. 12 motor vehicle accidents, 8 intoxicated persons that were either protective custodied or arrested, underage liquor law violations with arrest, 2, assisting disabled motor vehicles, 5, assisted other agencies or other towns, 7, check the welfare of people, like, if Dave doesn't answer my phone, I call and say, go check on Dave's welfare. 9, 2 suicide attempts, again, 2, 3, and 4 every week in Keene. That adds up. It's over 100 a year. Between 100 and 200 a year. That's amazing.
It really is.
The barking dog animal complaint, which I complain about all the time. It's like, if you can hear your dog barking, so can your neighbors. Right. 17. And motor vehicle stops. I hadn't reported on this last week. During the week, there was a total of 80 motor vehicle stops. 80 with warning. Excuse me. There was 90 total. There was 80 that they just gave a warning at.
Yep.
So 9 were given a summons and 1 was arrested for something on the scene. And it's interesting, you talk about the motor vehicle stops with warning. Some people think that the police just love to pull people over for the heck of it. They don't, because it involves paperwork. Okay. Right. When I was with Officer Corbett that Saturday night, the vehicle was going around the common, decided to go up Court Street.
Yep.
Bounced off the curb, went around the corner, hit the white line, went over the yellow line, hit the white, kind of straightened out, and then it was we got up near Elm Street and finally pulled it over. And, you're thinking the worst. It was just an elderly driver who shouldn't be driving at night.
Yep.
Just, a little bit dark. And anyhow, so you never know.
Well, I'm not that elderly. I don't want to drive at night.
No. Jeez. I don't like driving on the day anymore. So that was the week at the Keene Police Department. One thing I also did, let's see, I made a note right over here. I'm starting to take a look, and I'm going to compile week to week frequent flyer lists. Is like, some of these addresses, they go to week after week after week. I did write for this particular week multiple calls, and I did mention that there were 7 drug issues at Keene State dorms. And the Keene police don't go there unless college security calls them.
Right.
So like I said, they just don't go on campus because of it, because they have a whole city to be watching. Noise complaints, frequent flyer, was the Castle Center at 32 Washington Street.
Really?
You go up right across from the middle school almost, just before it. They went to one of those addresses 4 times, so somebody's misbehaving up there, and we're going to find out who it is.
Yeah.
And then noise complaints over on Wilson and Blake Street. There were 6. That's in the the college off campus housing area, and I'm sure that's going to quiet down a little bit here with the college being gone. Other than that, it was a pretty diverse week where the police were all over the place. I did get the first 3 or 4 days printouts for this past weekend. I didn't have a chance to compile them yet. This is the last weekend college was open. Friday and Saturday, the city was nuts.
Yep.
So I'll be compiling that together for next week.
Yeah, that'll be interesting next week.
Yeah.
See how people left town.
Yep. And there'll be a few more leaving town with a record, and that's not a good thing. Diploma, police arrest. Right. Oh, it's not good. So anyhow, that was it. And, obviously a busy week. And like I said, I'll be compiling lists of where the frequent flyers are. So with that said, Dave, we got about 8 minutes left.
Well, I see you had some of that fun, crazy state stuff. We usually wrap up with that when
we kind of run down on city things that we kind of covered everything. But it does affect the city. So one thing I want to talk about the state, and Speaker O'Brien up there, and there's no love lost here for him at all. And, we're aware that everybody's had to cut back. I mean, places get cut, things get cut that you don't like, and it is what it is. Of course, the state's cut back way too far because now the communities like Keene are taking a pounding.
Yeah.
But O'Brien comes out and says, yeah, we can cut $400 million more. It's like, 400. What are you going to do? Just shut the state down? Yeah. I mean, seriously? The heck with paving the roads. Don't send any money down to the cities. It's like, are you nuts? Well, we know that answer. Never mind.
They're trying to pass that law about, stand your ground law like Florida has. So, maybe they just assume we don't need any police or anything like that. Everybody just load up and fend for yourselves.
Yeah, buy your own fire extinguishers.
Sure, yeah,
put out your own fires.
Everybody
buy a plow for your car.
Yep.
It's just, and it's just where they ask him where the cut's coming from. Of course, he gives the typical Speaker O'Brien answer. I don't know, we'll find it.
Right.
$400 million. It's like, give me a break.
Well, do we have a total on how much they've cut already?
I don't have that with me, but I'm telling you.
I mean, look, there's always places to find waste in government that you can cut back on.
Always waste.
But when you start just cutting everything, our bridges are falling apart. It's just crazy.
And for college students to go to school, and even in-state, that's
up and up and up. Yeah.
And so $400 million. Obviously, some of that's going to come from the educational system.
Sure, and where are they going to get it? By raising tuitions. I mean, it's the student loan debt is about to pass mortgages as the number one debt in the country.
Absolutely, it is.
When my father went to college, he could pay for it, work and pay for it.
Yep.
All right. Now you get out of school and the typical debt is like a mortgage.
Oh, absolutely.
So.
Oh, they're paying for these students. I know. My son, fortunately, he had a lot of scholarships, but 9 years of college, through his PhD. I mean, he'll be paying, student loans for
years
a while.
to come.
Yeah.
Well, the president just said 8 years ago he paid off his student loans. So you're looking at your 40s. You're 24 or 23, depending, and you're looking at your 40s that you're going to be paying off this loan. And this country is just turning on education, and it's really insane. It's really stupid.
It really is, and that's why I've been a comment on the show before. So frustrating that the country of Australia took care of my son better than our country did, as far as education goes. Well, it's like, it's irritating, is what it is. That Australia, sees the brightest in the world, and they're willing to educate them and try to keep them there, which they've done.
Which they've done, yeah.
And over here we keep cutting in education, and I don't know if you even see the ad on TV where in the world the U.S. is 15th or 18th or something like that on math.
Yeah.
I mean, we're towards like the bottom
of the industrialized countries.
And it's like, really that low? You see Korea. You see all these countries ahead of us that most people probably laugh at.
Yeah, except for their economy's booming and they're doing very well.
And they're educating their students better.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can only cut so much. And yes, there is no question that we can sit down and find, maybe not so much in state government, because I'll tell you, the state is just...
Well, there's not much left there.
No, they're to the bone. I mean, federal government, yeah. I mean, the Democrat or Republican, I mean, you can argue about which word it's going to come from first, but there's a lot of fat, obviously, in federal government. So they send you and I there for a couple of weeks. We'll
take care of it.
We'll square it away. Absolutely. Let's see. What else we get on there? I had an article over here, and darn if I got it. And basically it talks about the ALEC. And what that is, it's a American Legislative Exchange Council. And basically what it is basically a charade. And that's what the Attorney General's all over it, too.
Well, they're the group that pushed that stand your ground stuff.
Yes.
And they've been pushing it all over.
That's exactly what it is. And, they make it sound like they're a middle of the road.
Yeah, which they're not.
Which they're not. And of course, who's become an active member of it? Speaker O'Brien.
Oh, of course.
Shock, huh? Yeah. And, it's just amazing that the more you read about what's going up in Concord, that it's nuts. And it's like, hopefully that the Democrat Party sends enough moderates up there But we also need the Republican Party to send moderates up there to work together. We can't keep having a majority of Tea Party up there and then nothing. Well, not only does nothing get done, negative gets done.
Right. Well, a lot of negative gets done. Well, the president's leading in the polls in New Hampshire by a pretty good margin right now. So
it's early.
It's way early, but
it's early.
Does anybody not know what's going on when they ask these poll questions? I mean, it's never. It may be early, but my God, it goes on for so long that you got to know what you're going to do by now. So his coattails may wind up grabbing some moderates. Look, I mean, you look at like your Nelson Rockefellers and stuff. They'd be called Democrats now.
And speaking of that, if you read just locally, just yesterday, we're in Dick Lugar.
Yeah, lost
in Indiana. I mean, he's a Republican that's been there for a long time and lost. And he lost because his Tea Party, candidate that went against him picked on Dick Lugar, saying he campaigned too much, or he compromised too much. He compromised too much. It's like, and you think, okay, Dick Lugar, what was he? Dick Lugar was a conservative.
Yeah, conservative.
I guess by old standards, he was a conservative that'd be willing to talk to his neighbor.
Yeah.
And
yeah, right.
And he was liked on both sides of the aisle,
yep.
And that's exactly what they used against him when he ran. Well, they like him on both sides of the aisle, so he's no good.
Yeah, it doesn't mean he's not conservative. He would make deals that he had to make. He'd lean them to the right. I mean, and the funny thing is, the Democrats, if Lugar had won, they wouldn't even have touched this race because he'd win. Now they're talking they're going to pump money into it because the guy who beat him is so far to the right that even Indiana may not like him.
Well, I mean, even Lugar came out and said this isn't what the country needs.
Right.
I don't care if it's an R or D in front of somebody's name. I'd almost like it rather to be like City Council, where there is no R or D in front of anybody's name. You go there, you work together, you vote, you get done. There's no party lines. Wouldn't that be great if they could do that in Washington? You get in there and it's like, oh, we don't even really know if you're a Democrat or Republican. Or you just kind of.
Where do you stand on this?
Or you just kind of forget because you're working together, and it's the issue.
Yeah.
You just go with the issue, and that's nuts. And I know that the Tea Party. I know they're all excited out in Indiana that they won it, but they shouldn't be excited because they're going to lose. They're going to lose the seat.
Well, look, I mean, and this happened in the last election in Maryland, where the what was her name? The witch there.
Bachman.
No.
Yes.
The actual witch. Yeah. She actually at one time.
The wicked witch is dead.
Yeah, she wins the Republican nomination. A Republican standard bearer was going to win that election.
Yep.
She wins it, moves the party to the right. The Democrat wins the seat. I mean, it's nuts.
That's one of the. And I left that for my ending notes, which is perfect. 10 seconds left. That's why I like Keene, because even if we disagree on certain issues with certain people, for the most part, we can talk and be done at the end of the day and still be friends. Go get a cold beer. Speaking of that, it's time for one.
Good night.
Thank you. Have a good week.